stepping inside the principal's office, building community with the right synergy. Stepping.
A lot of times this topic comes up with leaders. It's either met with
it's a safe place to be, where leaders can be free. Come learn new lessons.
gap is closing.
Feel free to ask a question. Inside the principal's office.
I mean, are you guys principals or middle school students?
Inside the principal's office.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for stepping in to inside the principal's office. We're so happy to have you here with all of us. My name is Charles Williams. I'm just one half of this amazing show, and today we are going to reconnect with you and just bond with you as we continue to build this network of educational leaders from all around the globe. I am a K-8 principal inside Chicago, as well as the co-host of this show, the host of the Counter Narrative podcast, and the founder of CW Consulting, because I tell everybody I'm just trying to do as much as I can with my limited time here in this space. So, you know, we never do any of this work in isolation. Today, we have two amazing guests with us. And we also have my favorite elementary school principal in Denton ISD. No, just favorite principal, period. Right next to me, McWilliams. How are you this morning?
I'm good. I was about to say your favorite. I was getting choked up, but then you said in Denton ISD. I said, you don't know anybody else in Denton ISD. So I better be your favorite. Hey, everybody. I am Mr. Mac. And this morning, for the first time in 2 years, I am inside my actual principal's office at Savannah Elementary, where I serve as the learning leader. I am a career principal. Yes, I'm finishing my 20th year as an elementary school principal. 14 years here at Savannah Elementary, and we are so proud of the things that we've done. We're celebrating our Sweet 16 tonight. Yeah, we're having a Sweet 16 dance, and I am just so excited about this space that we're creating, an opportunity for leaders to get together and talk about things that are impacting our babies. We all get an education because we believe all kids can learn and learn at high levels, and we are here today. I see you on Facebook coming in. Hey, Nancy. Hey, John. Hey, Dr. Hayes. Hey, Robbie. Thank you for coming in, because we're here to sharpen the saw and figure out what else we can do to ensure that more kids learn at high levels. I have our two friends here this morning, and we're going to let the lady of the panel introduce herself to us and tell us your expertise and just greet us this morning.
Good morning. I am Darby Ahlfinger. I'm a special education supervisor in Denton ISD. I've had the privilege of working alongside Mac for several years now, and I think we have great rapport together. And so this is a privilege for me. I appreciate the invite so much, and I hope I can share some thoughts that'll really help you guys as you join us this morning.
Yes, you are the special education queen. And can I tell you, I have learned, Charles, I've learned so much from this woman. I have grown as a result. And so when we said that we wanted to tackle special education, I knew that she had to share with others. Jeffrey, we've had your brother, and now you're here, and we're so excited to learn from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself this morning.
Thanks, Mac, and everybody. Good morning, everybody. I'm an international school principal. I've been working in international American schools for the last 13 years, mostly in Latin America. I worked in Peru, and I've been in Brazil the last 10 years. These schools are American-type schools. They were meant for international students, but we also have a large local population as well. So we try to have many of the things that are going on in the U.S. schools and in the big districts in the U.S. when it comes to like special education and developing strong readers and things like that. But previously, I was a special education teacher in the United States. So I've always kept my foot kind of with some of the students that struggle academically and emotionally. And I look at myself as more of a counselor as well for the students, kind of coaching the students, in the different backgrounds that we have.
Excellent. Thank you for being here today and sharing your knowledge. I'm looking forward to learning from you.
So we've got Jeff in Brazil, Tim in Colombia. This is like the international brotherhood of like principals, right?
Most definitely.
Very cool. Thanks for being here, Jeff. Thank you, Darby, for being here. And thank you for everybody who are joining us this morning. Again, I've been seeing you pop into the space. Continue to let us know that you are here. Continue to say good morning. And of course, as we roll into the conversation and discussion, we want to hear from you as well. It is not just four talking heads in this space. We are not all, well, maybe Darby is the expert in this one. But we want to hear from you as well, your responses to these questions. And of course, if you have questions that you would love to be addressed, we can't make any promises, but drop them in this space. Again, this is a collaborative network, and so we want to hear from you as well. We are going to be discussing this morning our diverse learner population. We always talk about all. We say all the time about all of our students, and yet we continue to have those populations within our schools that seem to be invisible, that we kind of forget about them as we are going through our daily process, as we're just doing school, as I say. So today we're going to make sure, how can we be cognizant? How can we make sure that we are holding others and, of course, ourselves accountable to all of our students learning and growing within our spaces? As usual, we have two questions today that we will listen to, and then we will discuss, and we will close out with one of my favorite sections of the show, our ideas that stick. So with all of that being said, I'm sure we're going to have a robust conversation. So let's jump in with question number one.
Inside the Principal's Office Discussion Question 1. As leaders, it is our responsibility to ensure that all students learn at high levels, and that includes students who have learning difficulties and require additional assistance and support. How do you celebrate students who are in special education, and how can we become more mindful and inclusive of these students?
This is an incredible question. I know for some of us who are still in school, we are gearing up for our end of year award ceremonies. And a lot of times we tend to give the same students the same awards over and over and over again. And so how do we celebrate and recognize the accomplishments and achievements of all? I cannot wait to hear this. So, Darby, you kicked us off with introductions. So if it's okay, Jeff, I'm going to ask that you kick us off on this response.
Well, I would say, you mentioned awards assembly and stuff like that. That is great. End of the year, celebrating all students. But I think it's something that we need to celebrate students every day. I think everybody would agree with that here. And so what I like to do is I like to build relationships. And I know a lot of our students that are a little bit more intensive, and they are special education students. So, just giving them a fist bump every day, asking them how they're doing. If you see that they're emotional or upset, following up with them. So building those relationships, I think is very important. Also, I think finding out what their strengths are. We have a student that has autistic symptoms, and he loves basketball and he loves statistics. So I love asking him a lot about basketball and learning from him. And I think he feels a little empowered telling me every day about, what's going on in the NBA playoffs right now. But also, how can those teachers turn that strength in the classroom? How can they use his ability where he's really interested in sports and really interested in statistics? How can they leverage that? So I think by really just accepting the student, their personality, who they are, really getting to know them can help a lot.
Thank you. That absolutely building, and we've talked about that a lot, right? Building these relationships, allowing these students to be a part, I shouldn't even say allowing, empowering them, including them in that classroom, because we shouldn't be just allowing. This should be a natural thing. So Darby, what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, I love what Jeff just said. And my thoughts are right aligned with his. I'm going to I'm a visual person. I like to kind of give an example maybe that people can envision. Okay, so each of us, and this goes for our kiddos in our schools too, each of us has multiple pieces of who we are, right? I think of it as a pie, and there's slices of the pie. When I show up somewhere, I'm a wife. I am a former administrator. I'm a special ed supervisor. I have puppies at home. Like there's all these pieces, right? I know Mac, he's a father, he's a husband, he's a principal, right? He is amazing at picking out styles of clothes. Like he got some skill there, right? So he's got all these pieces of who he is. When he walks in the school building, the principal piece might stick up a little bit more, right, of the pie, but he still is who he is. Every single one of our babies are the same. But what happens when a student has an identified disability is they walk in the school and they feel like their whole pie is that disability. We have got to do exactly what Jeff said. We've got to figure out all those other pie pieces, and we have to highlight them and recognize them and make sure that student understands that they are who they are globally. And that disability piece is just this one little piece. And then we just figure out how to bridge that piece and give them access to their education.
Darby, that was masterful. That was masterful. Wow, we are all a pie. What kind of pie are you, Charles? Coconut?
I'm going to go with pecan.
Pecan pie? Cool.
Yeah.
That goes right in line with what my thinking was, because the question is, how do we celebrate students who are in special education? I think that one of the most important things that we can do for kids is to understand that they're kids. They are all kids. They all need us in different ways. And I think the label special education should be more for us than the kids. Special education lets us know that we need to acknowledge that there's something more that we need to do for them. But I think the best way that we can do to celebrate them and to motivate them is to just let them be a kid and put the burden of special education or whatever that is on us to provide the services and the supports that they need. Robbie's in the comments and she said, being able to praise a student, I have my black book, being able to praise a student for their small accomplishments teaches them to climb the bigger mountain. Isn't that what we do for all of our kids? We do that for all of our kids. We teach goal setting, we teach growth mindset, all of that for all of our kids. So we just have to know that it looks a little different for special ed, but that's us. That's our expertise. That's our training, our professional development. That, and I won't even use the word burden, though it comes up. That responsibility lies within us, and we can't place it on the kid.
You know, John mentioned something that was connected to what you just said, Mac, and I love this fact is, and it relates to, you know, kind of highlights, I should say, what Darby was mentioning is that our students, our special education students are general education students. They're just receiving some additional services. Right. And I think that is a great way to say, look, you are a general education student. You are just a student here, and not just, but you are a student here in our building, just like everyone else. You're receiving some additional things for your unique needs. And I mean, the reality is, and this is something I know that we've talked a lot about, is that we all need special things. We all need additional supports in a variety of areas. I mean, just last week, we talked about sharpening our saw. And we identified areas that we could do better in. We could all use additional supports in order to be better in rounding ourselves off. And I think that's important for us to make sure that our students understand that as well. And so we kind of normalize this, right? That it's, yeah, you're receiving some additional services, and that's okay. This student's receiving these additional services instead of stigmatizing. And we really need to move away from that stigmatizing to normalizing and just saying, how are we going to make everybody feel just, I guess, included, right? We do a great job, unfortunately, of identifying, as you said, Mac, of taking those labels that help us, but applying them to students and in the process, making them feel stigmatized and marginalized. And we need to do a better job of I guess, just more, I guess, internalizing that and keeping those conversations behind closed doors. So that way we can make sure our students are getting to where they need to be.
Right. And I think another thing that we do is we have to make sure that in our schools, I'm doing a t-shirt that I'm going to create next year that says, "We, not me." We come into schools and these are our 22 kids. This is our classroom. I have the inclusion class or I don't, and we do all those things. But if we can create cultures in our school of collective responsibility where they're all our kids and not just talk it, but we're sharing kids across tier one, where kids are already seeing lots of different teachers and everyone in the building has a role that they're playing, then it's not such a big deal when teacher A comes in and pushes into a classroom and is helping. And then how we use our special education staff, Darby, co-teaching. Just because there's 4 special education, including kids in a classroom, doesn't mean that those are the only 4 kids that the person works with. It could be that you're going to take the teacher's highest group. So she has skill in that, that teacher has expertise in that one skill. So she's over working with the special education to teach kids while you're in the room working with another group. So we just have to be innovative, and we have to, again, remove the labels from the kid, and it's on us. We serve all kids no matter what they need.
So Mac, I know that, and I'm just trying to keep an eye on our time here. I know that we had a question pop up, and I'm wondering, it talks about, pausing and reflecting on some of the mistakes that we've made, that we make in our classrooms. And I'm curious if we could connect this to our topic this morning. I think, and anybody can feel free to jump in on this, but, one of the things I'm wondering about, and I'm just, the immediate thought I had is when we make a mistake, not just necessarily in the work that we're doing, but maybe how we address somebody in our classroom or how we treat someone in our classroom. And so, I love my students, and I tell people this all the time, and we have, just like any other school, we have diverse learners in our building. But we have really built that collective we, and our students, for the most part, treat these students just like any other student. And in fact, if someone steps out of line, before I could address it, before the teachers can address it, they're addressing that student who has stepped out of line. And so I do think that is a great opportunity to have those conversations of why we don't, treat students, any of our students, any differently from one another. So I'm curious, if anybody had any ideas in that question. Thank you, Robbie, for it, by the way.
I'll jump in.
I'd like to mention that I also think it's very important that we teach students how to be inclusive. I think that is something that's kind of difficult in the middle school, especially. How can we teach these students to be inclusive without stigmatizing other students? I find that in these teachable moments, where we have a student that explodes with other students, then I can work with maybe a small group of students that were affected. We might be able to talk about that individual student. They often know maybe some of the difficulties that student has, and how can we reflect on that and become more inclusive? So I think that's a very big component. I know you're talking about the we, right? But the we got to be very compassionate. So I find that kind of interesting. It kind of goes along with this question about making mistakes. But how can we help students become more tolerant of these mistakes, and maybe by students that are maybe a little bit more disadvantaged or have more difficulties than others?
And definitely right along that too, what I would say is, none of us would stop a child from coming into a classroom and leaving their wheelchair at the door, right? None of us would teach a group of people, students or adults or anyone, and say, okay, if you wear glasses, you have a magnification advantage, so you must leave your glasses on the table. You can't use them. Right? We would never do that, right? Mm-hmm. We've got to look at a student's accommodations and how they access things the same way. Right. Because the student needs to be included in any way they can, but they're not going to be able to access that if we don't understand what their barriers are and how to bridge those barriers. So if a student, I often say when I do trainings, it's really fine hairs between providing scaffolding and differentiation in the classroom, and providing an accommodation for a student. The difference is it benefits all students if it's a scaffolding or differentiation. It is imperative. It's the only way the student can access the academic rigor or the social piece of school. It's the only way they can access it if it's an accommodation. And that's the difference between the two. And we have to understand that as educators so that we let that student put on their glasses to be able to access what they need to access.
I love that one, Darby.
Excellent. I'm learning so much. We could stay here all day, but we need to move on. I want to talk about summer is coming. Yeah, we have Monday and Tuesday that are full days, and then Wednesday and Thursday are half days. And then, Charles, we're out on the 26th at noon. I've noticed over your right shoulder, there's a book over your right shoulder entitled Inside the Principal's Office. Hey, if you have not picked up your copy of Inside the Principal's Office, this is 4 weeks. We're talking about reflection. This is 40 weeks of reflections for leaders. We're going to have you think about your message, instructional leadership, servitude leadership, what you're learning, how you can tell your story and influence your learning community, and then celebrations and reflections. It is an easy read, but I tell you, the feedback that we have received has been great. Do yourself a favor and pick this up on Amazon. And if you're anywhere near Louisville, Kentucky on the 15th of July at 10:30 a.m., Charles and I and our other co-author, Dr. Robert Thornell, we will be presenting at the National Association of Elementary School Principals. And we would love to see you. And hey, you know what? Maybe, Charles, this is a thought. I may get in trouble with Wallace backstage. But you know, if there are people that are watching that's going to be in Louisville, maybe we can do dinner and do like a spontaneous principal meetup where we just have dinner and just kind of talk about things. We'll talk about that. Maybe.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
yeah. But it's out there now, so it's happening.
That's kind of out there now. So let's go and let's continue this learning today. We're having such a robust conversation today. And let's transition into question number 2 so we can learn some more from each other.
Inside the Principal's Office, discussion question 2. Each school community only has a finite amount of resources to address extremely challenging situations. How do we balance our commitment to do what's right by every student and improve student outcomes regardless of needs with capabilities of schools, leaders, and staff to support those students?
This is a question that I think that we all have had to address in our leadership. Jeffrey, would you like to start us out today on question 2?
Sure.
That's deep, and I think that it's needed. It's a
it
needed
is.
dialogue.
You know, just reflecting in the COVID pandemic, I would often say all hands on deck, right? We need everybody's collaboration. I mean, we had secretaries that were substitute teaching, you know, that we were all getting involved. We were all trying to do our part during this crisis situation. And so I think that if a school is under-resourced and underfunded, it just means that everybody really needs to pick up the slack. We all need to collaborate. We all need to get together. And I think as a principal, it's important that we help design that. You know, where can our special education teachers, how can they collaborate? How can we help design in the schedule, you know, collaboration with the classroom teachers? How can we develop maybe some co-teaching opportunities? So, you know, just really getting involved in that. How can I meet with my special education teachers to offer them leadership on a consistent basis? So, you know, answering that question, I really think we learned a lot during the pandemic, and we're still partially in it, about collaboration. And I think we need to keep that going.
Excellent. I'll just jump in right here because what I would share is the exact same thing that you shared, and that is we have to identify what do we want our kids to learn. You know, what should kids be learning? What should they be doing, no matter what label that they use? And I believe that the number one resource that we have are the people in the building. You know what I'm saying? Let's stop talking about who's not here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stop talking about what we do not have. Let's stop talking about what was not given to us. And let's look at what we have, what is in our level and our realm of influence. How can we, there's only so many moments in the day, but how can we rearrange the schedule to make sure that people's needs are being done? In education for too long, we've allowed ourselves to be excuse driven, and we can't do and we can't produce and we can't perform because. But what we got to realize is the clientele that we serve every day that they're with us, we should move them one day closer to the thing that they want to be when they grow up. And their future is too important for us to sit around talking about how we're 2 subs short. Okay, we're 2 subs short, but what are you going to do with the 4 that you did get? Let's collaborate. We're smart, we're professional, we have passion. And I think if we collaborate and sit around the table, I know that it's people, not programs that we purchase. Mm-hmm. It's people, not purchases. It's the people in our buildings that are going to make a difference. Let's get together and talk and be creative. Darby?
Sure. And you know, another resource that's there, but we have to be willing to access it, is you have so many skill sets across your campus. Special education teachers have a skill set, right? But all the teachers have a skill set. The thing that we have to realize is we expect these children to walk in our doors and be vulnerable all day in areas of their own challenge.
Right.
We have to take our adults in the building, just like you're saying, Mac, and bring them to a mindset of we're all the same. Whether we're a 7-year-old or a 70-year-old, we are the same as far as areas of strengths and areas of challenge. And if a teacher can look at themselves with critical grace and say, this is where I need to learn to get better, and then let that person on the campus that's an expert in that area develop that skill, then what happens is your tier 1 academic and SEL programming becomes more robust and stronger. And it allows for you to get more out of the personnel that you have. So that is super. I just think that's a resource. But here's the thing, and I want to share a personal story if I have time. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is where I come from. And I share this with people on occasion because I want you to understand that child sitting in their seat and what can happen. I could not learn to spell till I was 12 years old. I had dyslexia, and I know I look good, but I'm quite older than I look. And so I grew up in the decade where dyslexia was not even recognized, really. And so I had lots of concerns with learning myself, and my mother and my teachers could not figure out because they knew I was bright, but they couldn't learn to spell. And so eventually we found out I have an auditory processing disorder, cannot hear phonetic sounds. But what I'll tell you is when I was in 10th grade, this is the difference maker. When I was in 10th grade, I had an ELA teacher sit down and say to me, you're really intelligent, Darby, but you have a learning disability. And there's a difference between the two. And so I'm going to give you, it was this little box, took like 18 AA batteries. It was a Franklin Mint speller. And he said, I'm not going to count off on spelling anymore. I want you to use this spelling device to help you correct any spelling errors you have. And from now on, I've talked to all your other teachers, and you're not going to have any penalty for that. Okay, but he gave me an accommodation. I wasn't in special ed. He gave me an accommodation. That trickled into me getting, because I was not going to go to college because I didn't think I could. That trickled in me to getting a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then eventually a master's degree in educational leadership. And now here I am sitting in this seat. So I'm telling you, when you see that child struggling, that's just one piece of them. There's no telling where they can head someday. So I do like to share that story sometimes just to tell people it's possible. We just got to pour into the adults and the students in a way that builds capacity.
Wow. Darby, you've never shared that with me before. You got me my eyes sweating on a Saturday morning. You do. That's the key again, is working, being vulnerable, and learning from each other, because I believe kids learn more when the adults in the building learn more. If the adults are learning and growing, our kids are going to learn and grow. Charles, you always have such deep thinking. I can't wait to hear your voice.
It's always challenging going last, because I'm like, but so there were a couple of things I was jotting ideas down, and Jeff kicked this off, and Mac, you reiterate. I love that excuse-driven concept, and you're absolutely right. Like like anybody else, is we've been struggling with making sure that we have coverage. But if we take a look on, we could easily say, well, I'm tired, I'm overworked, I'm spending all these time in all these other places. But instead, what we could say is, what are the benefits of that, of having my counselor teaching a class, of working with our students, instead of just saying, we're going to do a small group focused on this, right? Think about all of the different benefits that can come out of that, and maybe something that would not have happened without this pandemic, right? We're very used to kind of people being in their silos, doing their things, special education teacher over here, math teacher over there, right? So when we're having these shortages now, we're being forced into this. And I would challenge leaders to say, how can we continue some of these same practices? Of course, without the exhaustion and burnout, but how can we continue some of these practices of making sure of that collectiveness, that every teacher is touching with every student and benefiting from those specialized strengths that each of those teachers bring. And when I read this question, one of the things that I saw was that regardless of needs. Now, I'll be honest, we're doing some of our end of year assessments, and a few of my students came to me and said, Mr. Williams, can I go with the TA over to this other room and just work, so there's just fewer of us in there? And I said, absolutely. And, one of the other leaders in the building said, hey, that's an accommodation, and they're not special needs students. And I said, and so what? If they need to work in a smaller space so that way they can focus and not be distracted by everyone else, and that is how they're going to produce their best work, then that is what they're going to do. There's this concept of targeted universalism, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard this, but I love this idea. It's like, I don't know if you guys, when you're watching your Netflix, right, you're binging your TV show, I'm the guy I put captions on all the time, right? It was not designed for me. But what I like to do is I read it, because I'm not always paying attention, but I read them. But that's a concept of that. It was not designed for me, but it benefits me. It's like the ramps on the sidewalks. Those were not designed for everyone, but everyone benefits from those. And so when we talk about education, we really need to embrace this concept of saying, what is out there that may have been designed specifically for a student? Darby, just the other day, I had a kid looking, she couldn't read a word. And then I told her what the word was, and she's looking, oh, that's an eye. And I said, honey, can you see that? She's like, no. So I turned on the magnification for her, because it wasn't a fact like I can't read it. I don't have my glasses. I don't have money. I couldn't go to the doctor. I'm turning that thing on for you. Because otherwise, the results that are going to come out of this assessment is not a reflection of your intellect. It is a reflection of the space that you're in and whatever barriers that were there. And that is our goal, to remove those barriers. And so I love that part, regardless of capabilities. I know we came in specifically talking about our diverse learners, but we have to understand that all of our students have needs, and how are we going to address all of those needs for all of our students? Because I don't know about you all, but I frankly get really, really upset when we say all, and then we sit in our meetings and all I hear are those excuses. So Mac, I'm using that. No more excuse driven.
No more excuse driven. The other thing that I was thinking about is this. So when we get those test scores back and we're not giving kids the accommodations that they need, not only is it a reflection of what you said, it is a reflection of our failure to serve kids and give them what they need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So small group's a small group. I don't care. Get over there. Turn that on. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ez. I appreciate the support. So we're going to get ready here as we are closing out the show, we're going to move into our ideas that stick. Now, I know that we've shared a lot today. If you're like Mac, you have your little black book or green book or notebook, whatever book it is, that you're jotting all your ideas down. But we want to walk away with some concrete things. What are we going to do? So that way we can move forward and actually put these things into practice. And we would love to hear from you as well. So afterwards, we'll drop the same question in our Facebook group that we'll talk about a little bit later, but we will drop it there and we want to hear your responses as well. So our question is this: what will you focus on next school year to ensure more accountability for the progress of your special education students? And so we're just going to take it around. And so one of the things, and I'll be honest, I completely forgot what I was talking about, but I know for me, it was just really focusing on these students specifically during our data dives. That's what it was. It was our data dives, really focusing in on these students. We have a tendency to kind of look at data from back here, right? And saying, oh, look, as a school, we're moving forward towards our goal. But we really need to dive in and say, okay, what about those populations that maybe are not part of that? And what are we doing for those specific students? And I know Mac is very similar on this. So when he shared his, I was like, oh, that is why we do the show together. So just really focusing in and monitoring those students, because as we said, if those students fail, it isn't their fault. It's our fault. And what have we failed to do to make sure that they're receiving what they need to be successful? So Darby, you're up next.
Yes. So it's really, again, about finding that bridge for each student. So we've got to find a way to engage and offer that access to whatever that area is that's a struggle for the student.
Thank you, Darby. Yeah, access is a huge thing. I don't understand why we oftentimes say, oh, yeah, but we're going to keep you over here and allow everyone else to do all of these other things. But you stay in your space, and then we are curious as to why they're not making the progress they need. So I love that one. Jeff, you are up next.
Sure. For me, it's ensuring that our teachers are collaborating, that our special education teachers have really good collaboration and good structures with our regular education teachers. And I even hate to say special education, regular education. I don't like to really devise the two, but just making sure that there's really good, consistent collaboration. And what can I do as a principal to ensure that?
All right, Mac, bring us home.
Jeffrey, we are like brothers from another mother. My idea of that stick and what I plan to do on our campus is the same, the exact same thing. My ideals that stick, what I want to do next year is have consistent name and need meetings for special education staff. We have had those where special education staff are in the grade level, but next year I am going to have a specific name and need meeting. You go to those with those general education teachers and you talk, but I'm going to add another day to our schedule, and we're going to have consistent name and need meetings for special education staff, and also build in time where the special education teachers are actually collaboratively planning with general education teachers so that there's a better understanding of what the essential standards are in the grade, and so that the teachers are more effective when they're in the classrooms working with the kids that we're targeting today.
So this has been an amazing conversation. And I know earlier I shared a link. And Wallace, don't pull it up because I was going to say that there's this story that I saw on the news. But I think it's super powerful. And so, Darby, I want to just say thank you for sharing that story when we can personalize these things. And so, I know as we close this out, and I just wanted to share one of my own here, is that I had a student who was a diverse learner, could barely read, could barely write, but this kid loved to tinker. I mean, he would build things like he was like Iron Man. Like he literally built like this exoskeleton thing. I was like, kid, what are you doing? Our students were invited to go to Boeing. And I know I've shared a part of this story before, but this is one of the parts that I haven't always shared out. So our students were invited to go to Boeing. It was a rocket building competition. And as we were trying to identify who we wanted, it was the students. And I'll be honest, this is just me being transparent here. It was our students who said he needs to be a part of this. This is what he does. He was not part of the original conversations, right? Where the leaders and the teachers were all discussing who should be going, who should represent the school. He didn't come up because he was a special needs student. There was the initial thought, and I know it wasn't said in the conversations, but reflecting back on it, it wasn't said that, well, he can't for this reason. It was like, you're just not part of those normal conversations. And he went, and I will be honest, there was an issue with the firing mechanism on Boeing's part, not on our students' part. They just built the rocket. There was an issue with the firing mechanism, and he's the one who fixed it for Boeing at this competition. Wow. And so it was just like like, there is a place for me in this world. Maybe it's not sitting in a classroom reading and writing these books, right? But there is a space for me because this is my talent. And ladies, that is what we talked about today, right? This idea that we need to make sure that we are seeing all parts of all of our students and making sure that they have access to opportunities to be successful. That I'm trying to summarize, because there was so much wonderful conversation today. But for me, that's how I am encapsulating today. And so I want to say thank you for an amazing conversation, Jeff, Darby, and Mac, as always. Thank you for these conversations today. Next topic, we are going to get back together on June 4th. So we hope that you join us again on June 4th as we talk about unfinished business. I don't know about you all, but it seems like every year we close out the school and I'm like, wait a minute, my to-do list, I didn't check everything off. I didn't get to everything that I needed to do. And somehow, in fact, it's longer than it was before. So we're going to talk about unfinished business and how we go into the summer, making sure that we are ready for the next year. So I hope that you're able to join us. But before we close out today, as always, we want to ask our current guest for a question that they would pose for the upcoming episode. And so, Darby, I will start off with you. What is a question that you would ask as we discuss this topic?
I would say, how can I put together a to-go document for just a bullet document for my teachers as I go into the new year that will help them target in the areas that they need to understand about their children who are diverse in their learning, so that they really have a focus area that is in that growth mindset piece, so that they can look into those students and see them as that whole pie before they walk into the door.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Jeff.
I would suggest something very similar to Darby. How can the teachers really get to know the students before they start the school year? How can they dive in? How can they know them as a learner? How can other teachers share information with them? The special education teachers share, information with them, so that they can, build those relationships and be successful with students.
I love it. I love it. Those opportunities to get to know you before you're in my classroom, and to know you as you, not just as a student, but who are you? And I would challenge also all the other way around, to allow you to get to know me, right? Because I am more than just a teacher. I am more than just a principal showing up every day, right? There are these other aspects of me as well. So absolutely great. So, as I close out, Mac, I just want to turn it over to you for any closing thoughts that you may have as well.
I just want to comment, the topic, we could go on and this could be another show. And it is something that I'm passionate about. I'm glad that Darby's here, because she has seen my evolution, because special education was not always something that I felt comfortable with. But it is an area, when you're uncomfortable, those are the areas where you have to say, this is my focus and this is where I'm going to learn. So I've learned so much. And I just want to say again that when the adults in buildings learn more, kids learn more. So I just want to encourage everyone, continue your professional development. Shameless plug, get this book. It's going to help you if you're a leader, if you're an aspiring leader. And I just want to encourage everyone, very robust conversation today. Be the communication committee chairperson for us. Would you please share this broadcast today? Would you join our Inside the Principal's Office Facebook group? These are the types of dialogues that we want to have in between our shows. We meet in this forum twice a month, but these type conversations we can continue to have so we can reach more kids, reach more staff members, and so that more kids can learn at high levels.
Absolutely. So you saw the Twitter space and the Facebook page down at the bottom of the screen as they pop up. So please make sure that you join us. Until we see you again on June 4th for our next topic, I hope that all of you stay safe, be well. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for watching and learning with us at School Rubric with educators from across the globe. For more access to articles, magazines, podcasts, live episodes, our international school directory, courses, and more, visit us at schoolrubric.org. Thank you.